So I'm gonna make these videos for YouTube. Most of it I've already placed. I wanted to place on Facebook. I've already placed it on there, but I'm having a lot of error problems on Facebook, so it becomes very, very difficult for me to get anything really done. But I want to talk about the whole situation. I know I've shared this before, and it's always very disturbing. It's always very, very disturbing because Frankie had seen so much of this, and it become so much little of this, and paid so very little attention. And when he did pay attention, it was very passive. And it isn't that I won't blame him because of what he went through, because he was trained to by all the homosexuals. Not only because they raped him so many times, and it was so many different grown men, old men. It was the fact that you had teachers and society that was literally swarming you as a kid to train you of gay pride, because the first thing the homosexual gay people would need to do is immediately train you to go against me, because they knew that I was straight. I was attracted to real life women at a very young age, so they knew this one isn't gay, which is going to be a problem for the army. If the platoon of them know that I'm not one of them, then they immediately have to train Frankie to turn against me, or to be gay pride, because then they can go ahead and they can use that to their advantage to get away with any explanations of homosexual rape, to cause a lot of deterrent. I'm having like a bad allergic reaction on mine. And the reason I say this is because, there's red flags. I mean, it's not just red flags. There's huge signs. There's profound evidence, things that were so direct that at a very young age, Frankie was already homosexual bound for that community. Because once I wasn't one of the gays, and Julian was, this is my team. And Frankie was scavenging very differently than the way Julian was, but Julian was doing the same thing. They didn't have the interest. Julian was just scraping off the fucking floor to see what the fuck he can get, and then ladder it later with credibility, when he thought that he should have been entitled to just as much. And I took it upon myself to follow my dad's wishes, not because he wanted it. But it still doesn't change that even if that money and fraction of the portion is shared, he cannot share those experiences when my dad was actually working, or many soccer games, because Julian even played soccer for, I think, one season. And I say this because, the number one thing that I know that they would have done to Frankie is have Frankie go toward my biological father, go to Ivan, poison my mother's head, and build an ally with Julian. As soon as that ally would build with Julian, it would cause a deterrent. And you have so many people attacking me, and you have so many security situations with them being put in a safe place, give them jobs, make sure they're comfortable, make sure the situation, it wouldn't have even mattered if my life got really good. They would have already helped them and support them to secure the perimeter around my mother, to make sure they could steal and take everything, and then use my mother's twins to then scavenge to steal even more and lie. And Frankie had no interest. When I was younger, and it had to do with this little girl, he was not of any interest to say anything about the little girl, my mother, being raped. He didn't have any interest. He was already being trained at a very young age, and there was already so many homosexuals that were going toward Frankie, and that's what they would have done now, and they would probably still continue doing that. So the number one thing that I know that they would do is have Julian and have Frankie build an ally with Kenneth and build a bond relationship. As soon as they find that glue, it would cause me problems with me putting my firearm and shooting Kenneth. Not literally, but like angry, pissed off. Because he knew he was doing a profound amount of evil and dark, demonic shit. Very fucking disgusting. He was targeting the dead little girl, my biological father. Very manipulative. He was showing up to my house and my apartment where my mother lived on the other side for a little while, or whatever it was that I saw her, and he was preventing me from talking to a blonde white girl. And nobody even knows these stories much to the greatest details. I just didn't say anything because it was very suspicious, but I always kept an open mind to what the fuck is going on. He just must be doing something else. But it didn't change the fact that I was extremely offended when that had happened at my fucking residence. So the number one thing that they would build is build a glue between, and they're making me pass gas like fucking crazy and shit, is to build an ally with Marco, have Marco poison my mother because he's not in the relationship, have my mother played stupid like she has been by Kenneth and his team, and then have Frankie infiltrate the situation, because it basically balances things out so that, oh, Julian and Frankie is the same thing like me, it's just the same thing. No, it's not. And so that's the number one thing that would happen. And Sarah, like, my mother would have been wanting to slap the shit out of Sarah Cooper for her showing up while I was going to die in a hospital. And I'm not even kidding. So even if all these problems occurred, it does not ever going to change that President Barack Obama was in that White House. He was the one that was charging me. He was the one that was making those threats. He was the one that was going to be sending his pro-black movement, first black president. That was a curse. That was indefinite. Bad things were going to happen to me. My mother would have never liked any of those things. But since they keep milking the situation and they can get her twins to then poison my mother's head, they deter any type of storytelling. They deter and shit all over any evidence, any explanations, and they can really make up any story they want. No, this is what your mom wanted. We're just there for love and helping your mom. This is 20 fucking years in the fucking making, what these motherfuckers did. And my dad's been dead for 22 fucking years. The number one thing they would have also done is go after Michaela and go after my biological father, Hector. As soon as you put the pressure on them and you started training them, you can get Hector to really dismiss me, which is my biological father, and I was named after him, and then cause problems. Because they're still doing this to this very day. There's guys that's showing up around my life that look like over the last few weeks, and several weeks and months, or last couple years, and they'll portray themselves like my biological father and basically act as disrespectful and nasty to me, so that the imprint of that emotion stays in its sediments to dog shit if he's still alive. And that's how they can slither in to do anything that they want, because if there is no connection, if there is whatever that connection is going to be, it can be deterred, so it can be strictly benefiting for the movement of Kenneth Cooper and the Cooper family. And specifically Barack Obama, because he has a banana dick daughter, transgender, and he has to feel emotions, for Michael Jackson, and he has a transgender over there, and he has to feel a little bit better of that. So if you have a transgender on stage, I feel good for American flag again. My daughter's born with a banana dick, and it's just it's just how things just happen. So anything that comes out of this person's mouth is going to be garbage. It's worthless as shit. It's just to kill, destroy, seek, poison. That's all this motherfucker is. And they're going to keep making up lies, because once the evidence is put on the table, once everything you want to hear, it's just so solid, they don't give a fuck. You don't have conversations with those people. They're just garbage shit. They see the world very differently, deal with magnitudes of things that no human being other than presidents deal with. My life is worthless to these people, only to scavenge for resources and play Monopoly, chess games to see what they can use and do and take away. And so that would be a crucial thing. And because there's so much of a buildup of time, they can send people to go after Michaela and make it look like Kenneth is a hero, that Kenneth is the one that sent people to go protect Michaela. Once that's secure, and they make up that conversation, and they build up for so many years, when the bomb actually drops, then that's when they bring up that playing card. They bring that wild card. And it'll make my father like, oh, my biological father, he's been dead for a long time. But if he has anything to say, man, Kenneth, thank you for protecting my daughter. I knew your real manhood and Ken Cooper, because your dad's name's Ken Cooper too. Really protected, Miranda, my daughter that died, and you were watching over it, and you were just keeping a balance of things out, and just, you were real Mexican colored too. So since racial barriers is also an issue, Michaela's half white, Kenneth is half white. How can you bomb that and then direct it at me? Well, I have the same haircut and I have the same hair color and same mother and same father, so how is that going to be benefiting for Kenneth? How can you use that for a tactical way? Because remember, one of the bombs is always going to be burying her. Okay, who's going to be there? Kenneth had better be there. He's going to be there and he's going to bury her. Since he was so protective and he did it for the gays and he did it for, let me see who's going to get away, you can bury her along with the rest of the family, even though you were just shitting all over, because the president really depends on your American transgender movement and your family. And so even though she's my sister, that's the archangel that protected her and guided her and protected my mother by what he said, and he was just being keynote. And then the entire community will be proud of you. And just as the way they attacked me for the last fucking 25 fucking years. In such barbaric and brutal ways. They were working in so many teams and so many work environments. It's fucking insane. So that's always going to be a bomb. That's always going to be something that they can then utilize the energetic emotion and spirit and respect credibility to shift in any direction that they want. So it's benefiting for the movement. Because the fact that any of this type of tactical shit is doing with this burial that's ever going to happen, that is strictly only happening for the benefit of, that's just garbage. It's just garbage shit. It's worthless. And it's just to benefit Kenneth. The conversations of psychology, the conversations of religious, garbage. They knew how to neutralize the situation and punish the way that they did me. I mean, it was unbelievable, the hatred and the things that the people they sent and what came. I'm not kidding. I saw my sister, I want to say, I was thinking of this like a couple of weeks ago, and I saw my sister at least, I think, one time at McDonald's where I met Michael Jackson. I'm sorry, where I met also Barack Obama. True story. Now, how can you use this dead little girl that died so many years ago that was retarded, shitting herself in a princess outfit, for an exchange for Barack Obama and his movement for the black power and transgender movement? It doesn't change the fact that all these people were doing this. You have to get Frankie. You have to get Julian to then utilize it to yourself for faggots, because the time is gone. I'm not going to be 21 years old again. I never got to hold a girl's hand going to movies, on a regular basis. At least never. I've never taken a girl to a fair park, as an adult, or a Six Flags, or Wet n Wild. I never gone swimming with a girlfriend. None of those things. At 28 years old, everything got cut off. From the moment my transplant happened, between I got raped by a transgender at 28 years old, there was nothing but fucking 40 fucking tickets from the police department and being threatened in residence where I was living at. And they're fucking dead now. These motherfuckers are fucking dead. Some of them were fucking twins. And they knew about my mother, the twins. They were all for Kenneth Cooper, Ken Cooper, the police department, for the whites, for the gays, who was a leader of everything. It doesn't change that every time I go to these places, they were robbing me, they were stealing me, they were threatening me, they were kicking me out. Just literally, I'd stay one place 2 months, 3 months, boom, I have to leave. Person tells me they're going to keep my deposit. Boom, I go to another place. I stay there 2 weeks. He steals my deposit. Starts manipulating me in front of the worst. And so they already had motives when I got to these houses. When they had these motives when I got to these houses, the motive was perpetrate this young motherfucker and fuck his life up. I don't give a fuck. Poison him. get away with whatever. Let me tell you, one of these places I remember eating food, and I got horrifically sick. I'm talking, this guy told me, yeah, why don't you go eat some of that right over there? And I had, like, trying to be nice to me. I mean, these guys look like Santa Claus fucking nice and talk to me nice, but had a fucking bowl full of poison ready to serve me. Pure fucking poison. Where I'm, like, shitting out blood and shit. Like, I'm fucking coughing up chunks of fucking mucus for, like, 8 weeks. You know, this one guy poisoned me so bad, I was sick for, like, 8 weeks. Maybe even more than that. Got bronchitis. He told me to eat something, and he had made something. I mean, it was so slithering and so smooth that I was very young, and I was getting tickets. And this guy was like 60 years old. This was pure murder-suicide. These pieces of shit are fucking dead now. Both of them are fucking dead, and they were twins. This is just one house that I went to that this happened to. And I remember I had bronchitis and I was working for the federal government, and it took like 2.5 months to get this pneumonia out of my lungs. I think it's called pneumonia. You get all this mucus shit. I mean, it was like a dark mucus. It wasn't like a light shit. It was like deep into the lungs where the fucking mucus was like a dark green and shit, and had like splats of blood on shit on it. And it was really fucking bad. I was fucking sick, and I knew that this motherfucker had just poisoned. I literally, like, overnight, like that, I was just fucking flared, fucking sick. So anyway, these people keep stealing money, keep giving me tickets, and like at this point, because I've never had anything like that happen before, and so many people harassing me about supporting Kenneth. He's the leader of the straights. He's the leader of the gays. We got to support him for the whites. You know, gay power for Ken Cooper. It never stopped. That's their leader, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, oh, this guy's straight. He's going to ruin Michael Jackson's career. And just American flag. They don't give a shit. They didn't care nothing. This was to attack me, period. So what happens is, all this accumulates. Everything was gone. Everything was gone. I couldn't, the minute I even talked to one girl, like a real life girl, even if it was at a job site, just for a little bit, what would happen is that 2 or 3 gays knew that I had built up this nervous. Because it wasn't just talking to the girls. No, it was because of the police and all these faggots swarming me. Swarming me like crazy. And when they were swarming me like fucking crazy, they knew how to just, like that, so that there's no communication with the female. And they would do this like this all the time. The minute I'm in a work environment, that's what they would do. Repeatedly. You don't do what I tell you to do, I got the police. And they're just, I'll get some papers and just scare you. Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah, she just wanted to ask you for some papers. Hey, let me give you this paper. And so you knew what that meant. Like that. Like, there's no conversation. Now, these guys are getting paid big bucks. And I mean, it was wild. You don't understand. Like, I had Bill Barkley. Let me tell you something. Bill Barkley is this piece of this motherfucker. I never said anything to it. The day that my father died, and he knew all the information. This is at Standard Register with Doug Brown. I never got a raise. This is where I got sick for my transplant. And this motherfucker, the day that my dad dies, there was one gay guy. He was kind of flamboyant. He was nice. He was a nice guy. I don't remember. I think his name was Dave or David. And he worked there at Standard Register. He was good. He was a good guy. But this Bill Barkley worked there, and he was the initial guy that hired me in the very beginning, at least what I thought he was. The day my dad died, I worked for like 2 hours and I didn't say anything. I just walked out to the warehouse in the parking lot, and Julian there was crying. I looked at my mother, and they let me know, your dad just died. And I go in there, and it was just earth-shaking. I go back to work. Immediately just go back to work, and it was very spacey. There wasn't very many people around, maybe 7 or 8 in this huge warehouse. And I work for maybe about an hour, 40 minutes or something, just trying to digest and just like the reality is just, that's it, all eternity. That's it. That's everything for life. And all the money, the house, going to nursing homes, all that shit. And I finally go and I tell the boss or one of the supervisors, and he's very kind. I tell him, look, I need to take a couple of days off. About 45 minutes ago, I was just told my father just died. And so I need to take a couple of days off, and they were very nice. They gave me 3 days work pay, and that's the benefits they gave me to everyone that has a sibling, just direct sibling that dies. My father died, and so I then go back to the floor, and I'm working, and I wait for Bill Barkley to maybe see him, and it's just like after telling the guy, like, I wait maybe 20 minutes, and I walk over to Bill Barkley, and I say, and I've known this motherfucker for a long time, and I say, he goes, hey, I'm going to be taking off work, my father just died. And he goes over and he looks at me and goes, oh, and he acted just like that, like taunting me, like in my face. I'm fucking 20 years old. And he looks at me and he just does, oh, and he like taunting me and then walks off. Like taunting me, oh, your dad died? And like takes off on me. He does this right to my face. He knows there's conversations and things that he brought about Kenneth he was supporting. There were things about Doug Brown. I mean, it's wild, some of the shit that was going on. And so anyway, I knew that everything that is kind of going on with this particular type of situation, that you have all these people attacking me, is they build so much credit. They build a movement that they shift everything. You can't do anything about it. And that was why to rot the situation out. Nobody, I've been around gay people before, some of them were close friends, which is like a brother to me, Robert Girardi, which I don't think he was, because he had been bisexual, because he had been with women before, so I was with him, without a doubt. But the clarity of different people, they have a good steady mind, like a healthy, spiritual, very respectable of death, and especially little kids. Let me tell you, Michael Rossiter would have never done something like that. As much as shit as I've gone through Michael Rossiter with, Michael Rossiter would have never done that to a little kid. Like, he would have stayed away and gave it respect in that manner. He wouldn't have picked off on it like a worthless shitbag, like the way that Sarah and the Cooper family, especially Kenneth, did. He wouldn't have done something. In fact, he would have felt uncomfortable with that. As hardcore as he fucking is, I know he wouldn't have done something like that. Like, he would have found that to be fucked up. And for someone like that to have found fucked up, and I've been around different characters, they're always going to find excuses and lies, because when the leader and the benefiting person, like, who talks bad about Michael Jackson and genuinely hates this motherfucker? Like, genuinely with a passion. It didn't matter. He could have raped 4 or 5 kids in his lifetime, and nobody would have known about it. And the few people that did, who do you think's going to fucking believe them? And how many people do you think really like him? He does whatever the fuck he wants. It was very nasty. So I also would love, and God, Jesus wished, for Kenneth Cooper to speak to my biological father, if he's still alive, so he could tell him how he nurtured and protected the whole balance of situations for his dead daughter and Michaela. And so that way he can be there for the burial when we do get her ashes, or when we go to her cemetery and be like, yeah, she died there and buried there like 30 years ago. Well, he's going to be there, and he can put his flowers there, and we could do the ceremony all together, because the president wanted it that way, remember? And that way it can heal, and we can find a healing process into that, because that girl did die a long time ago. That way it belongs to him. That way his faggot over here and his transgender over there and his transgender over there can be very happy with the American flag, and it can be done properly. But that's probably not going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to utilize that as an internal trash can. That is an internal trash can. That becomes an internal trash can. I'm her brother. I saw this girl, I protected her in some cases, but I gave the respect, not even knowing, but that was his sister. Like, in fact, I liked Ivan the way that he sort of protected her. When I saw Ivan being picked on by 3 kids that were riding around, Ivan looked like he was ready to like fight these motherfuckers, like by himself. And he looked at her like, this is my sister. This is my sister. I'm proud of this. I'm proud. This is my sister. And I remember that. I remember looking at him and he walked in proud, like, this is my sister. This is my sister. We're walking together. We're walking on the sidewalk together. And I remember that when I was looking down the street when Andy Hoppin and Micah Martinkus and Drew Greenway were circling around like fucking hyenas. And Ivan was much more bigger than me. And so you could tell that, they were kind of deterred the fact that he was bigger. And so he was going to be a problem if he wanted to fight. But, in these circumstances, that is an internal trash can for whatever it is in the afterlife or whatever it is can be spiritually benefiting to this existence. So all that is a trash can for Kenneth and for Sarah. Every single time these motherfuckers, these transgenders and these gays that did this, is to throw the garbage shit there. Because Frankie didn't give a fuck. It's a lie. I don't give a fuck if Frankie went to the military or not. It's full of shit. He's full of fucking dog shit. And so is Julian. I saw Julian when we were in the fucking house the day my father dies, that he was playing tug of war with a dead little girl. And I remember that. And I didn't know what he was doing. They didn't tell me shit. And, he even though he was a very little kid and he saw her, it was really, I was the core of the family that was near that girl the most. But you're going to get Kenneth, the transgender movement, and the feel sorry, the fuck you story. That's what this is about. He did a support for black and black power, Barack Obama, first black movement, president. Man, that means a lot of shit. Remember slavery? Remember the American soldier that died also in Iraq? Okay, well, that's what we're going to fucking do. But I know that's not going to go any that way because this motherfucker's just going to throw the shit at me. And that's what he's doing. That's exactly what he did, and he's not going to. But this is my perspective of that. I think would probably be healing in an overall picture. Because there's been so much garbage. So many people were just picking vultures at this dead body in front of me. Like, what I saw, there's so many things that I was part of. Like, I used to play Ninja Turtles with Ivan on the front porch where this little girl was sometimes. And there would be, and she wasn't, I keep making me shit past gas. She would be shitting herself on the front porch, and I talked about this, and I went over to, like, sometimes she wouldn't be out in the front yard, and I would watch her. Like, I would always kind of just take a look at what's going on. And I would watch her, and she would, many times, she would be throwing up. She would be laying on the floor like this. Like, because the person can be really mentally functioning. It's a borderline of just being in a coma to, like, being able to stand up on your own. I mean, sit up on your own. This little girl could not sit up on her own. Like, barely. I mean, she couldn't. So I remember always being scared of that when I was a kid. I remember thinking that she could throw up. I know that this sounds fucked up for a little kid to understand, but I understood that as a little kid. I remember very distinctively being 9, 10 years old and looking and seeing this girl and thinking that, and I remember her sort of just kind of gargling, like, and she would have throw up, and it was a frequent thing. And I remember thinking to myself, she could, this stuff is like going back into her lungs. Kenneth the hero for 97.9 to beating the transgender movement for support. So he's a real man that could deal with a bullet, like a Marine that killed 150 Iraqis. Yeah, that's the skin color of the White House. Oh, I mean, support the blacks. Becomes real racist, becomes real scavenging, and it shouldn't have been this way. I believe truly that the best situations, even if had been spoken very lightly of in the stories that I've already shared, it shouldn't have been thrown and dismantled. Because guess who showed up into the picture? that I didn't know about. For those that don't know, you know Alison Dubois over that talks to the dead, psychic medium, world famous Michael Jordan psychic medium, worked with the police department. She showed up once at the library when I was there, and I remember her opening a book, and then she squatted. And she opened a book and then stood back up, and then she went, and I remember looking at her like she was all sexy, right? But it wasn't that, but she knew that I found her very attractive. But this was the second time I saw her, and I was at the Josie Ranch Library. The first time I saw her was whenever I was over at Ridgeway's. The fact that she was over at Ridgeway's and that happened, she just evaluated me and that was it. She left. Now, when it comes to an afterlife and how scary this world is, how can you utilize this existence of energy and this soul of this little creature that was flopping up and down, dead, this little girl that hasn't had a proper burial? How can you utilize that for the existence of now to then feel comfort that God cared about you, or there's an existence of an afterlife that then can protect you, your fucking ass? And I'm not talking about Alison Dubois. She does that exercising. But what does she look like? What are her eye colors? What are her skin color and hair color? That's real famous on TV. And that's what Sarah and Kenneth were doing. Now, for 20 fucking years, they're milking this situation and everyone's attacking me for it. Let her know that I was the one that was stepping out when I was watching her get hit. And there's a few other friends I haven't mentioned that I believe, if I'm correct, it's just a few things of it, 100% I'm correct that they are taunting the little girl and trying to milk it themselves and doing the same thing. Exactly. Using the little girl and just, that's spiritual. Oh no, spiritual, like really fucked up shit. But that is going to be an open and closed door. That is going to be until it gets closed. And they'll want to close it, the case on that, to benefit Kenneth and Sarah. Remember, it's as disgusting it is, they're not going to let me have it. And like I said, I've been abused so much that, Jesus is my God, which he is. But it's the idea that, no, this is Jesus, and this is what Jesus wanted. But many people go to church, and so many people have crucifixes, but then they'll start talking about the afterlife with, psychic mediums and shit. And then so they get that benefit of it. My mother was, when she approached this little girl and she approached Lupe, which is the woman's name, that Ivan's mother, my mother was scared, like in a way to ask permission to touch her own daughter. Like scared, like she would go like this and be like, oh, like in a desperate reach, like, oh. No, Kenneth Cooper's like, oh, I'm a hero. He's like his dad, he's a real man with tits and a fucking vagina, and he's a mustache kind of guy, He's Ken Cooper, and he's just, man, look at those eyes and that skin and that. He's Mexican, and he's deputy, police officer, Michael Jackson. He knows how to do a Michael Jackson credit. I mean, it's fucked up. And they take ownership. I mean, Sarah Cooper she's 85 years old, scumming and spitting at the fucking dead little girl when I'm dying in a hospital. Remember who gets spirit and who doesn't. Remember? Oh, but you're Jesus Christ now, huh? My mother can't even touch the girl when she goes over there. My mother doesn't even taunt the dead little girl. Okay, my mother is coming home with a sore ass. And it's about Kenneth and hip hop station for head crack. I'm not sitting on the beat for black niggas, pro-black, the best of the best. I'm gonna, got my money. Oh, I didn't do anything. I wasn't a part of it. Every motherfucker, transgender faggot was coming at me. That's why they have to go after Frankie and Julian to come after me. Because you fuck Frankie up, you'll fuck up everything at the power of the top, most of it, so that it benefits Kenneth and the President of the United States. That feels real good, don't it? You could savor that shit. But I'm telling you, there's been so much time that is a guarantee. My opinion, I think it's always best that now the evidence is so much of the conversation has been talked, it shouldn't have been taunted around me. Because you're just spitting and just scabbing, you're meat picking at this little girl. Like, I'm sitting on that front porch. when I say that this guy was a playboy, there was at least, I think I remember counting them, is they were coming like every other day, and some like one day after the other, sometimes 3 days a week, and it was a different fucking person that was showing up, a different fucking person. They were showing up and leaving, and me and Ivan talked about it on the front porch. He goes, yeah, he brings girls all the time, he sleeps with, and we could hear them moaning in the fucking bedrooms. This is how crazy. I want to say there's at least 25. Like, that's like a low number. I mean, there was lots of girls that were coming in, and this guy would show up in his wardrobe, his Playboy, like, wardrobe, just pimping. And my sister's right there, throwing up. He took care of her. He made sure Ivan took care of her. But do you see how Kenneth gets the benefit from it now? Because he did, hip-hop for Michael Jackson, who got the better life. Now scum that shit. So that's why President Barack Obama would probably, he's not going to probably want it, but it'd be benefiting. So when, whatever ashes, I don't know if she was cremated, I don't know if she was buried. I believe she was probably cremated because we don't have any money. If they burned her and they cremated her, holy shit. If they incinerated her, my mother probably would have not liked that. I don't believe my mother would have liked that. I don't think you would want to cremate a little kid. You cremate adults. I think children you would give them a burial, not a cremate. But I don't know. I don't know if they did that. I think it does matter when you do a burial, like even long after it's happened, whether the person was cremated or their burial body is still intact. And I believe that it would have been, if they did a cremation, they would have influenced it in order to bury the little girl that way, because then if it ever comes back, you have it disintegrated. You have the corpse in the existence with the mentality and picture that it's been incinerated. When you have a dead little girl in a casket that's buried on the ground, I believe it has more substance to that attachment when you actually approach a tombstone, as opposed to just like a pile of ashes, because that is in existence. Even though we're spiritual human beings and we're supposed to think there is more of that human body that's still intact, that is sort of has a little bit more than just the ashes. So that is something that I think would have been benefiting, because remember Michael Jackson, and I saw my sister at least once at McDonald's where I met Michael Jackson, at least once. Because you got to understand, we went to Albertsons, that McDonald's our whole life. That's obviously where I met Michael Jackson. The street name is named after Jackson. I met President Barack Obama, who literally opened his mouth and had all his, like, he was like showing me his food in his mouth, like. And so since she vomited in her mouth and she had a dirty mouth, Barack Obama then can utilize that energetically and spiritually, so that he can get away with Medal of Honor bullshit around my neck, and for keynote, and I send it on the beat and for the movement. Once you're broken down, then that's when it's going to have a benefit for it. That's when I'm broken down, and that's whenever they'll do it, just the way that they want it, right? That's why I say that's nothing but a trash can. So they have to get Kenneth into that circle. They have to destroy it, dismantle it. It's very discerning and disgusting to do that to a human being. But I have to make sure that this is going to be benefiting for that side and that team right there and that sidekick right there. Because there is nothing that can be done. As much as frustrating as it's had in my past, I feel very uncomfortable, personally, with kids, dying, and, it's crushing, because when it's not the stuff that happens like that, when it's so dismantled horribly, it's that, like, magnitudes of bad, because there was no existence, this was about keynote, this was about, let me make a lie up, let me tell you how I'm going to get away with it, let me get all the trans and gays and faggots, let me show you how I'm going to stay with the police department, and detective Ken Cooper, he's named after and David, who was one of the kids that used to live with him, was a team member, Nobody knows about the shit that he was talking either. They were working as a fucking team. I guarantee you, if my life would have been completely different, they would have still, they wouldn't have changed. They would have just shitted on it. They would have exchanged the good things that happened in my life as an ignorance, and as a benefiting thing that could have happened in my life, to exchange it to the horrors that they would have done. That it would have been unnoticed. But the burial in that situation would have happened in the way that it did. It's going to happen. If it ever does, it's going to happen. There's no reason to dismantle a poor little girl that just wanted to be a princess and was just being dismantled. You know, there was no reason. Because you're not just doing this to me, you're doing this to Ivan's sister. He was the one that was having vomit fall onto him and like shit and like walking her every day in front of public. And guess what? Remember that little box that Kenneth was in? Okay, well, Kenneth used to work at 97 on the Beat in that glass box. Now, how can you associate this glass box with my retarded sister that was dying and flopping up and down with sickness, this poor innocent soul, right? Because you have this preciousness of this, oh my God, you know, life and all this other bullshit, right? Because that's what people do. And then you have Kenneth, radio station, protecting Michael and the McGays, and he was just, you know, doing this, and he was just doing that. He was just getting his pockets full of cash from Sarah and cosmetics for his transgender being himself. How can you merge those energetic components so that it's benefiting? Because remember, I'm the one that's being scummed at, and that's my sister. When people know that that's my sister, they look between my legs and say, oh shit, we may get another retard. Oh, I didn't mean to tell you that, because Frankie knew better. He could just buy the little kids at a fucking grocery store. Or Julian could get the little kids at the grocery store. They don't come out of your fucking nuts. Nor do you have to ever worry about you'll get one of those products. Oh no, after my transplant, then we have to make sure Hector's not going to, because we have to protect, you know, the infected Hector. No, if that wasn't enough, no, at 28 years old I get raped by a transgender. Let me tell you how they get away with Barack Obama. You know, he knows how to do it. The conversation will come to an end with any defense, but that is always a guarantee, and I dread that day in a way to get over with that, because it's been scummed beyond anything strictly for that benefit. The benefiting has already been placed on their table the entire time, and their people. That is just to harm me, knowing that I was going to be pissed off. That is just to use it as a shuttle for my biological father, and to utilize it for Michaela, who's my half-sister. They can utilize that dead little girl and utilize it to themselves. How can you utilize now this spirit so that it puts God fear into these people? It doesn't matter, because remember, not everyone believes in Jesus, and not everyone believes in the same type of Jesus, but it's, you know, everyone will admit that they believe. Most people will admit, at least in the U.S. and people that I've ever come in contact with in the U.S. and some in other countries, there's this social understanding that they believe in ghosts, and they believe in energies of some kind of souls of existence of human beings that have either been seen, watched, experienced some spooky shit, you know, spoons flying across the fucking room, something fucking weird, you know, that says that wasn't human. So how can you utilize that? How can we make this benefiting so you don't get fucking scared and you think you're going to go to heaven and she's going to guide and hold your hand over to the ancient paradise? You know, because in the world that we live in, where we have all these philosophies of what afterlife is, you have some people that believe that people with Down syndrome are extremely elevated and highly developed spiritually, and it's the entire opposite of what we think in this world that we live in, that our brains are what functions as sort of spirituality. But it's not. It's the other way around. It's those very specific Down syndrome people are extremely advanced, and they were born very strict for very strict purposes, very special purposes. even though it didn't look that special, like Michael Jackson special or Barack Obama special, the way how special Barack Obama thinks of his transgender fellow comrade, Kenneth Cooper, for the Medal of Honor bullshit, and his banana dick daughter is a transgender, but it's special, okay? It's easy to say, well, that's Michael Jackson, that's special. That's Taylor Swift, that's fucking special, you know? It's, look at you, you know? Look what you did to the world and all your money. Look at you changing everything. You know, it's easy to do that, but you're flopping up and down, and you're throwing up, and you're shitting, and you're embarrassing my mother and me, and it's like, oh, you're not really embarrassing, but my mother has to keep her head down, but this is about Keynote 97 on the beat. Now, another thing you need to do is get my mother against me, and get her twin against me when you start circling around that dead little girl. How do you think that makes me feel? Now, what do you think the emotions now begin to feel? President Barack Obama again. I tell you how President Barack Obama gets away with it, because there's dead kids all over the place. You get lucky. That motherfucker just decided to be very nice and just scavenge off that dead little girl for the benefit. Remember, this is spiritual afterlife that we're focusing on, because many people died in Iraq in the war, you know, and World Trade Center. Oh shit, there's another one you can use. That one's for George Bush right there. The dead little girl for World Trade Center. Yeah. It's very sad. Nobody cares though, because there's so many problems. I've never had no existence of really other than Ginger having a girlfriend. And Patricia Gardina don't give a fuck. She was wishing me death right then and there. And they changed the story for Barack Obama. The stories are being so dismantled and so rearranged. It is fucking a stroke that builds up into the brain. Like cancer is building up into my brain of how disgusting and dismantling it is. Because there's no fucking respect. There's no dignity at all. This was, let me get away. This is the president. This is George Bush, who did, you know, and they do deal with a lot of death and casualty and just pointing the finger. But that stuck with me. They know, they know who's going to get the transgender benefit from that. Oh, but you know how they do it? Shh, don't say nothing. Find out if there's any transgenders that are taking care of that little girl. Boom. Right there, you have an energetic transition connection. You can attach it to that with Kenneth. It's my transgender, right? A transgender, you know, transgender. Mariah Carey hit him up a song. Boyz II Men will hit him up a song. You know, man, he's you know, head crack. So I come through, you know. That's good quality right there. Now that everything's unraveled and get caught, now they're gonna throw that shit at me, and it's no beauty. Oh no, look, now we're gonna give you beauty. They're gonna give you beauty now. Throw it there. So once that is incarcerated and sort of dismantled in a way, you can isolate it so that it becomes even stricter with the belief of Jesus, because it is. Man, if for those that don't, or I do, but when you go to a cemetery and you look at a tombstone with someone that you know, there's a sense that you have, or at least I do, not everyone does. There's a sense of fear and understanding more of an attachment of Jesus and like a God, because it's real and we're no different. You will cease to exist. You just want to have a better time than I do. And it's wild. So anyway, my battery's running out. Thought I'd make a video on this. It's because it's happened for so long. Even before I knew about this, it's so frightening, the preparation of mentality of how I'm going to place these negative implants and shit. It's just, it should have been addressed, talked, conserved. We do think of our emotions. We do not for, you know, what the way that they did, and then it's just, now it's time for that. If it ever happens. If it's never going to happen, it's taken care of, then there's no reason to bring up that existence at all. She's now with God now. But apparently it was that important for, you know, Barack Obama and the movement, for Michael Jackson. And who had a better time for music? And I was just trying to go to school.